In the 20th century, we knew what war looked like. And we knew what peace looked like. Wars were fought between states. And we knew who our enemy was. And peace was seen as the norm. But the world has changed.
The world has changed a great deal. We really need a better framework or paradigm to help us understand the actors, their strategies, and the tools they're using today.
It surprised me that we didn't know that this was coming.
Second day in a row, it's on many times the terrorists struggle in the city.
Today's security environment is different. In the 20th century, there were only a relatively small number of states. They were thought to control their territory and provide services to their people. Today, there are almost 200 states, and they differ greatly. There are approximately 50 liberal democracies that support the rule of law, human rights, and economic progress. There are another 40 dictatorships. And also, what is different now than in most of the last century is that today, approximately half of the countries in the world are weak, are failing, or have failed. And this will continue.
A failed state is in a difficult position because you cannot deal with these kind of people themselves. And there are a surprising number around the world. Some people say 30, some people say 60 states failed or teetering on failing. And these nations are extraordinarily vulnerable to a terrorist group, people with special interests, maybe their ethnic interests, maybe their religious interests, maybe they're criminals, it may be about drugs.
Many of these non-state actors have created their own capabilities to accumulate power and to achieve their goals.
When you look at the organization of armed groups, many of them will have what we call an underground, and then they'll have a public organization. In fact, if you look at the structure of an iceberg, the above ground organization will be involved in trying to develop legitimacy and political support for the cause. Then there's an underground, or below the waterline element, and it carries out a range of activities and maintains a range of different kinds of capabilities.
These armed groups use a combination of violence, political tools, and communication strategies.
One of the striking features of modern-day terrorism has been the manner in which they have fully exploited the modern-day mass media. From YouTube, for internet, for Twitter also, they are very, very media-savvy. And it's instant. The incident takes place in the morning, by the evening everybody knows about it.
What we've seen is that the terrorist groups that we're looking at the moment are actually very adept, very skilled in the use of cyberspace. But what we haven't seen yet, and I'm surprised that we haven't, is major terrorist use of cyber attacks. It is inevitable that there will be significant cyber attacks from terrorist organizations in the future.
It's a paradox. They're using 21st century techniques for going back to the 7th century.
To promote and achieve their goals, some states and armed groups act alone, but many work together. Coalitions and networks of hostile state and non-state actors are being built. These coalitions can be very powerful, influential, and are often intricate. And we are seeing examples of this phenomenon in many parts of the globe.
Any group which has to have a global reach has to have some backing, whether it's a state or a superpower, super empowered individual. Let's look at the AQ Khan case, for instance, the entire episode. Now, this man had contacts with North Korea. He had sold technology and designs to Libya, and he sold it to Iran. It is intriguing that he should be selling it to the Shias and the Sunnis on both sides, knowing that all's not well between the two groups, basically. But he'd done it.
In Lebanon, the radical Shia organization Hezbollah has been sponsored and cultivated by Iran.
The ability of Hezbollah to threaten a weak country like Lebanon stems from the fact that, first of all, inside Lebanon, they represent something like 40 to 50% of the population of the Shiite community. And that's strong enough in order to frighten everybody in Lebanon. And since all the other groups in Lebanon are not really willing to fight, this puts Hezbollah as the only group that is ready to use force in order to promote its cause, in keeping Lebanon weak and in making sure that Lebanon will continue to be a base for terrorism. They are a part of a much bigger cartel that has a common interest in changing the world order and having also a global reach on behalf of Iran, and through this they can threaten even the United States' interests.
So that's a possibility of an attack coming from Hezbollah if the situation deteriorates there.
The phenomenon is occurring closer to home as well. In Mexico, these coalitions are led by criminals who corrupt and intimidate the governments and violate human rights.
They seek to keep the state weak and to be able to carry out their illicit activities with impunity. And you can find this throughout Mexico down into Central America.
One of the experts had calculated that the gross criminal product of the world is $1.5 trillion US, which is the GDP of the United Kingdom in 1 year. That's a huge amount.
There is a pattern to the global security environment that appears to be here to stay. But we are not helpless.
Given the players, their coalitions, and the techniques they're using, we really need to change the capabilities we have to manage the security challenges of the 21st century.
Everybody can play a part in this. The kind of coalition which I think we have to have is one which receives strong American leadership. What one has to get across to people is that this is not just a military problem. It involves aid and funding, and it needs to be coordinated.
We've got to keep abreast of what our enemy's doing. We must adapt, change, develop, and make sure that we're not falling behind the terrorists in any way at all.
The structure, the way of cooperation, the way of looking at the organizational level should change to enable a whole state operation, whole state campaign, to enable effective public information, or what's called strategic communication effort. You need to develop new organizations, new structures that would enable the effective flow of information and the effective development of ideas and the effective strategic systemic thinking about the situation.
We need to adapt our security paradigm for 21st century challenges. We need both a coalition with allies, state and non-state abroad, and at home we need a coordinated strategy across agencies, State Department diplomatic, economic, and military personnel.
With more states facing common challenges, we have the chance and a profound responsibility to exercise American leadership, capitalizing on America's unique strengths. We must advance those interests through partnership and promote universal values through the power of our example and the empowerment of people.
Fortunately, there has been some creative work done on these techniques. There is, in fact, a creative security agenda available. Now, even if these capabilities are developed, this will not be a panacea. It will not be a silver bullet. It will, in fact, though, make a difference in the 21st century.